Hi, and welcome to Medford Family Services. My name is Nicole, and today I will be going over life skills, tips on improving nonverbal communication, active listening, and emotional intelligence. Practicing these types of communication styles is the foundation of having a great conversation. During today's session, if you see anything in the video that you have questions about or that you like, please write them down so you don't forget them. Even if it's one or two things that you haven't heard of, anything is a great start. The goal of today's video is to show you how simple it is to start working on bettering your communication skills and hopefully bring awareness to your nonverbal communication as well as learning the nonverbal communication of others. I also hope that you find something interesting about emotional intelligence and active listening. Let me preface this video by saying that these are optional tips for improving your communication and emotional intelligence. Never force yourself to have a conversation with someone that you feel uncomfortable with. It's okay to keep your guard up when communicating with others that you're unfamiliar with or in a situation that you're not comfortable in. Every conversation is unique in their own ways and should be communicated in an area that you feel comfortable in, typically in a less public setting and more of a private setting. Having that said, let's get into the video. So, what is nonverbal communication? Nonverbal communication is the process of creating meaning through non-linguistic symbolic interaction. Basically, that just means communicating without words. There is so much amazing, interesting information that comes along with nonverbal communication. Today, I'm only going to cover the basics, but if you find this topic interesting, I highly recommend you taking your own time to research the nonverbal communication styles. Nonverbal communication is linked to culture. While there are general similarities all over the world linked to nonverbal communication, we cannot just assume that all nonverbal communication all over the world is the same and has the same meaning. For example, in the United States, a smile and a wave to a stranger might be seen as warm and friendly. But you go to Russia and it's not really seen that way. Things as simple as a wave or a finger can mean completely different things in different cultures. Studies show that in a typical face-to-face conversation, communication is 55% nonverbal, 38% vocal, and 7% words only. That means over half of a conversation is using nonverbal communication. Nonverbal has 6 different categories that we will be going over today. Starting with kinesics. This encompasses body gestures, head movements, and facial expressions. This is the most common and recognizable communication style that there is. Body language can be done consciously and subconsciously. These expressions can be subtle, like leaning in a conversation to show interest in that person's conversation, or it could be a little more drastic, like checking your watch and swaying back and forth, showing you're uninterested in this conversation. These reflect our perceptions of ourselves and others. Kinesics also includes facial expressions. We are more likely to believe someone's facial expressions than the words themselves. We primarily give out 6 facial expressions, and those are anger, happiness, sadness, surprise, fear, and disgust. These expressions are shown in micro expressions as well. A micro expression is a quick 1/25th of a second to 1/5 of a second that reveals someone's true initial emotion that cannot be faked. There's a lot of factors in determining how people can read facial expressions, but the number one giveaway are your eyes. It is scientifically proven that your eyes give away a lot more of the emotion than we realize. An easy way that I can tell if someone is genuinely happy or faking a smile is by looking at their eyes when they smile and if they have crow's feet. Crow's feet are those wrinkles in your eyes because a lot of people forget that when you're faking a smile, that part of the smile is with the eyes. So if you are looking to maybe call someone's bluff if they're happy about something, try to look if they have crow's feet. Another fun fact is you can sometimes tell when people might be lying from some nonverbal cues. Those cues are a gaze avoidance, fidgeting, restless foot or leg, frequent body changes, and they feel the need to explain the story into deeper detail to try to make you believe in the lie. Next is chronemics. This is how timing affects our communication. Time perception includes punctuality, willingness to wait, and interactions. The use of time can affect speed of speech, movements, and how long we're willing to listen. Keeping a few moments of silence between when the speaker is finished speaking and you start speaking is preferred, so that you don't seem eager or rash to speak. Some also view that showing up late to something that you were supposed to be there at a specific time is seen as rude because you seem like you don't want to be there or that is a lesser priority to you. The next type of nonverbal communication is proxemics. There are 4 types of proxemic zones, and those are intimate space, personal space, social space, and public space. Intimate space is less than 1.5 feet from you. Personal space is 1.5 feet to 4 feet. Social space is 4 feet to 12 feet. And public space is 12 feet and beyond. This does change between cultures, as in some cultures it might be seen as rude to stand so close to someone while speaking, but in others it might seem rude to stand so far away from others while speaking. There is a fine line that might be crossed when having a conversation with 2 people if you are in a personal setting and someone might lean into your intimate space and make it feel uncomfortable. Knowing boundaries and trying not to cross over into that person's intimate space during a conversation is very important, because the last thing you would want is to make someone in the conversation feel uncomfortable. Next is haptics. This is covering emotions and communicating through physical touch. Some examples are handshakes, holding hands, hugging, kissing, a shoulder pat, and touching of the elbow. Each of these things conveys a message, whether it is positive or negative. Haptics is also very important because you can also cross a fine line between a friendly shoulder pat or a little more intimate lower back touch. Try and assess the situation and use the other person's nonverbal cues to see what they kind of feel comfortable with or how the conversation is flowing. Try to make it seem natural and never try to force physical touch. Next is physical appearance. This encompasses characteristics such as skin color, height, weight, facial features, body symmetry, tattoos, piercings, jewelry, and clothing attractiveness influences how you perceive people. It is in our human nature to judge people based off of initial instincts. This does not mean that we need to agree with these judgments or that we need to make our final decisions based off of this initial reaction. A type of physical appearance is called artifacts, which involves jewelry, cultural attire, cell phones, cars, houses, and anything in nature that shows power and status. Appearance communicates meaning to people whether you mean to or not, both positive or negative. Next is vocalics, also known as paralanguage. This is the person's voice, their pitch, volume, rate, vocal quality, and breathing. You can tell a lot from a person's voice. A few examples would be an accent. You can tell what part of the world someone is from based off of their accent. Or if someone is a heavy smoker, you might hear a more raspy voice. Significant information is given from a person's voice or voice patterns. Nonverbal communication is so important when communicating, and when nonverbal and verbal match up, it creates trust, clarity, and rapport. Now that I covered some of the bases of nonverbal communication, I'm going to talk about the next topic, which is active listening. As you may know, active listening plays a huge role in trying to understand what the person is trying to portray. Active listening is greatly noticed and very appreciated by the speaker. It is known that people who are active listening have an increase in blood pressure, higher pulse, and increased sweating. This proves that active listening takes effort both mentally and physically. I will be going over ways on how to improve your active listening. First is controlled eye contact. There is a science behind making the correct amount of eye contact. Too much can be intimidating, and too little can be seen as you are uninterested. The goal is to make eye contact during a conversation to feel natural. Eye contact also varies by culture, and in some cultures, direct eye contact can be seen as rude. Some may stare at the nose, the forehead, the chin, mouth, anywhere around the general vicinity of your eyes to make it seem like you are listening, but not directly staring at the eyes. My next topic is being attentive but relaxed. The goal for me in most any conversation is to make the other person or people in the conversation feel comfortable with me. Doing so makes the environment more welcoming, and this allows the conversation to flow easier. Be present, pay attention, and be ready to engage when needed. Try not to be distracted from your own thoughts or surroundings when listening to the speaker. The next one is something that goes a long way, and that is to keep an open mind. Keeping an open mind makes it so that the speaker can talk without judgment. When it is done correctly, the speaker can feel it and they will speak more truthfully and honestly. The best thing to be is outwardly non-judgmental while in a conversation when the speaker is trying to tell you something important. Now, asking you to stop judging completely is actually impossible because it is in our human nature to judge, but doing so can be done privately and not outwardly. Try not jumping to conclusion when practicing active listening. The speaker is trying to tell you their story to the best of their ability. The best way to understand the story is by listening. Not letting the speaker finish their story turns the story into yours and makes the speaker feel more rushed. Everyone might be guilty of this, and it also depends on the person that you're speaking to or the context of the situation. On the other hand, if you finish someone's sentence, they might feel like you relate or that you understand where they're coming from. I would try to feel the situation out before trying to interrupt, or if you know the person and you're comfortable with them and it's not so much of a serious conversation, it's okay, but other than that, I would try and refrain. Next is to listen to words and try to create a mental picture of the story. This helps you better focus and understand what's going on in the story that you are being told. When active listening for long periods of time, it is best to hold on to key words or phrases. If you find yourself zoning out during these long periods of time, try to refocus and remind yourself that this conversation is temporary. Out of the whole conversation, usually only about 55% is actually listened and only 25% is retained. In a normal conversations, studies show 75% of the time people are distracted. Next is do not interrupt or give unsolicited advice. Unsolicited advice can come off as rude to many people, and unless they have specifically asked for your advice, try and refrain. Instead of trying to give your own advice, try saying something along the lines of, "I'm sorry that you're feeling this way," or "I'm sorry that you are going through this. I'm here if you want any advice or if you need help with the situation." Typically, when that is stated, then they might ask you, "Okay, then what would you do in this situation?" Or, "Okay, I do need help. I don't know how to XYZ." The next one is a short one that doesn't need much explanation, but that is to only ask questions for clarifying purposes. Doing so allows you to stay focused on the story and not to go on a tangent. Next is try to feel what the speaker is feeling. Facial expressions are huge indicators to show the speaker that you are feeling this emotion. Facial expressions are a huge indicator to show your understanding. If your facial expression doesn't match the tone of the conversation, the speaker might be confused or feel unheard. For example, if someone is telling you how their dog died but you're smiling, that could be leaving the speaker feeling like you're not fully understanding the situation. Empathy plays a huge role in most conversations, but especially active listening. That saying, putting yourself in the other person's shoes, comes into play here. And putting yourself in someone else's shoes is not exactly easy, and it does take practice. But doing so can change the tone of the conversation. With practice, empathy will become second nature to you. Next is giving regular feedback. Giving regular feedback shows the speaker that you're listening. By feedback, I don't mean making a list of topics and reading them back to them. I mean just a simple head nod, a yes, a yes, things in that nature. It's the little things that go a long way. Do not make a whole conversation with those little remarks. These are just supposed to be fillers between sentences to show that you're listening. Last but not least, we have nonverbal cues. As we mentioned before, nonverbal cues are essential in any conversation. This can lead the conversation without saying anything. Benefits of active listening include building trust, builds knowledge, and it is easier to resolve conflicts. Now that we've covered the bases of nonverbal communication and active listening, I will be going over emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence, also known as emotional quotient or EQ, is the ability to understand, use, and manage your own emotions in a positive way to relieve stress, communicate effectively, empathize with others, and diffuse conflict. Before we get into this part of the video, I wanted to preface it by saying that emotional intelligence comes more naturally to some people than others. To others, it might need to be learned and practiced, but the best thing is to be aware. These things can be learned and you can become better with practice. With that, let's get back into the video. Nonverbal communication plays a huge part in emotional intelligence. The most obvious link is understanding the true feelings of others based on their nonverbal communication cues. If you can read these nonverbal cues, you have the ability to understand and appropriately respond. Emotional intelligence helps you build stronger relationships, succeed at work, achieve career and personal goals. Emotional intelligence is commonly defined by these 4 attributes: self-management, self-awareness, social awareness, and relationship management. Self-management is being able to control impulsive feelings and behaviors, manage emotions in a healthy way, take initiative, follow through with commitments, and adapt to changing circumstances. Self-awareness is understanding your own thoughts and emotions and knowing that it affects your behavior. You also know your own strengths and weaknesses. Social awareness is you have empathy towards others. You understand others' emotions, needs, concerns for people, as well as you pick up on emotional cues. You feel comfortable in social situations, and you recognize the dynamic power in the group. Relationship management is the ability through inspiring others, managing conflicts, fostering teamwork, and moving people in the direction you desire. Developing these competencies will take time and effort, but you will be greatly rewarded in the end. You might not be able to undo a crisis at the moment, but emotional intelligence will help with the process of the next one to go a lot smoother. Emotional intelligence takes you further in life than you may think. You may know about IQ, which is intelligence quotient. IQ is a score derived from one of several standardized tests designed to assess intelligence. Emotional quotient, or emotional intelligence, is the ability to identify, assess, and control the emotions of oneself, of others, and of groups. IQ and EQ exist in tandem and are most effective when they build off of each other. Emotional intelligence affects a lot more about your daily life than you may think. I will be going over 5 ways that emotional intelligence affects your everyday lives. Emotional intelligence affects school and/or work. Having emotional intelligence can help motivate others and help you excel in your career. Because part of having emotional intelligence is to take criticism and start improving your work. Many jobs actually rate emotional intelligence as highly as technical abilities, and some even have emotional intelligence tests during the interview process. Second is it affects your physical health. Having the ability to manage stress has a lot to do with emotional intelligence. Being unable to control your stress can lead to serious health concerns such as increased blood pressure, suppressed immune system, increased risk of heart attacks and strokes, as well as increased infertility. It is also known that not being able to handle your stress can increase your aging process. I have a video of self-care tips, how to reduce stress and anxiety, that show tips on how to do so. Third is emotional intelligence affects your mental health. Having a high EQ means that you have the ability to manage and control your emotions, which affects your mental health. Uncontrolled emotions can lead to stress, anxiety, and depression. The inability to understand emotions from others can affect your relationships as well, which leads us to our next topic of how emotional intelligence affects our relationships. You are better able to understand your own emotions as well as someone else's emotions, which allows you to communicate more effectively, thus building a stronger relationship. This goes for personal and work lives. Number 5 is emotional intelligence affects your social intelligence. Being in tune with your emotions serves a social purpose, connecting to other people. You can measure a person's interest, reduce stress, and balance the nervous system. Signs of emotional intelligence include being able to identify and describe what someone is feeling, your awareness of personal strengths and weaknesses, ability to let go of mistakes, acceptance and embrace changes, a strong sense of curiosity in others, having empathy towards others, accept responsibility when making mistakes, managing emotions in difficult situations, accepting feedback and criticism as room to grow. Doing so is essential in life. Try not to take feedback as a negative and think of it more so as a way to grow and a way to better yourself in a way that you haven't seen before. There are 4 components of emotional intelligence I will be going over. The first is perceiving emotions. Are you understanding someone's emotions correctly? In many cases, it might involve nonverbal communication, such as facial expressions and body language to relay what they're saying or feeling. Remember that part of having emotional intelligence is by understanding nonverbal communication as well. The second component is reasoning with emotions. We use emotions to promote thinking and cognitive activity. Emotions help us prioritize what we have interest in and react to. Typically, we respond emotionally to things that get our attention. If something interests us, we are more inclined to ask more about it. The third component is understanding emotions. Emotions can be perceived with such a wide variety of meaning. This one to me is incredibly important because we really never understand the full reason why someone is feeling or reacting a certain way. We should never be quick to judge or quick to make assumptions about somebody because we really truly never understand what they have gone through to make them feel a certain way. There is usually a deeper meaning as to why somebody is reacting a certain way. For example, if your boss at work is randomly short with you or makes a comment about your work ethic that you know isn't true, instead of immediately thinking that you did something wrong or that your boss actually dislikes you, you could think about, why is your boss feeling this way? I hope he's okay. And you might come to find out that he was pulled over on the way to work after leaving the house in a hurry because he was in a fight with his wife. Understanding that people's emotions have so many layers to them makes it easier for you to understand and accept the emotions the way they are. Remember that somebody's emotions and reactions do not need to be the same as yours to be valid. The fourth component I will be talking about is managing your emotions. This one is crucial and done with the highest EQ. Regulating, managing, and responding appropriately to emotions are an important aspect of EQ. This takes practice and is a learned skill. Here are some other tips for improving your EQ. Listening to both verbal and nonverbal cues are crucial. Body language and facial expressions tell a lot more than you may realize. Make sure that you are empathetic. Putting yourself in someone else's shoes takes you so much farther in a conversation and in life than you may think. Practicing that can help you develop stronger emotional communication skills. Lastly, reflect. The ability to reason with emotions is a very important part of emotional intelligence. Your emotions affect decisions and behaviors. When thinking how or why someone responded a certain way, assess the role that their emotions played in it. For example, why are they feeling this way? What unforeseen circumstances made them think this way? What is contributing to them having this decision? Realizing that everyone has a reason behind their reaction, whether it is deep-rooted or surface level, allows you to understand and accept their response. Thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed our deep dive on the importance of communicating and the different styles of communication. We learned that most every conversation is a majority of nonverbal communication, and that typically 55% of a conversation is nonverbal. Active listening takes mental and physical effort when actually fully engaging in a story, and emotional intelligence and nonverbal communication go hand in hand when trying to understand the emotions of others. With everything that we have learned today, I highly suggest you talk to your peers so that you can build off of each other and better your communication. I also encourage you to provide feedback for me and my team. On the next slide, there will be 3 questions. If you could answer them in the comment section below, that would be greatly appreciated. I hope you found something here today that has resonated with you. As always, you deserve happiness, you deserve peace, and you deserve valuable communication. Thank you, and I'll see you next time.